Hello, guys. Welcome, everybody. This is our Scusa podcast. We're talking here about artificial intelligence, data monetization, specifically in customer operations and that part of business, but not only. And if you stay with us today, you will see that that's really worth it because the guest I'm happy to have with me today is super special. A person with very, very unique experience, a huge journey in data and in artificial intelligence, also an author of the bestseller on Amazon. By the way, we will get the link to get the book, but also a person that is very active in social media, which I believe is a mission to give somebody a huge perspective from C-level eyes about data, transformation of companies, data-driven transformation, things like that. I want to say that this is my personal experience because I was able and I was grateful to hear this person live in Austin, Texas in the keynote. And it's really, really struck me. And as a consultant, I learned a lot. So I cannot even imagine what you guys can get from 45-minute session today with Sol. That's her name. And I'm not even trying to introduce her because, I would do that really in a bad way. So Sol, please introduce yourself to the audience and just tell us who you are, what's your mission, and what you've been through.
Well, thank you. I sincerely appreciate that. That's a lot for sure. But I do appreciate the vote of confidence. There's no doubt about it. Like the whole thing just kind of happened accidentally. I couldn't have planned this career the way it's gone whatsoever. I started out as a data engineer only because I didn't know what to do, and it was the only offer that I got at the time. I was a professional athlete. I decided to hang up my cleats. I needed a job desperately. And so I was like, okay, I got to make it a living because apparently sleeping on futons and eating ramen noodles every night just wasn't a healthy lifestyle. And so from there, I pivoted and I applied for a bunch of jobs. And the first one was legitimately to be a data engineer. I found my group, but I was also rejected by that group because apparently I could not write production ready code, and that's what they needed. And I fell into this weird space where I call it the translator role. I was essentially, they didn't want to talk to the business. They just wanted to do the work and be heads down. And so they're like, here, the business wants an update. You go do all the updates. So then I would take the work that they were doing and I go to the business, share with them the updates, what we were finding, what we're going to do next. The business would then tell me their requirements and some changes and feedback. And then I would go talk to the team. And I just bounced back and forth between these two groups. And at first I felt a bit rejected. At first I felt like I didn't have a home. I didn't know what I was going to do. But then around 4 or 5 months, both groups had a dependency on me. And it wasn't that they appreciated me or that they even knew that they needed me, but both groups always came to me when they wanted something done that had to do with the other team. And so after about 4 or 5 months, I was like, well, maybe I don't need to feel rejected. Maybe this is the role. And then I legitimized it in my own brain, then with my boss, and then I built a team. And then we were never called business analysts. We were always just called the translators. And the career just kind of took off. I never stayed in one place too long. As soon as I felt that I was not growing or learning, or I had a boss that just didn't believe in me, even though I tried really hard, I had no issues leaving. I don't know why. It was very, very risky, but I was just like, nope, if there's another offer to be taken, so be it. And then the big break, my first big break happened when I became a platinum NDM consultant in 04, 05. That's when everyone was talking about master data management. I did a few projects. IBM then recruited me, and I went from being an individual contributor to managing a team within the enterprise data management division. I made partner. I helped IBM launch Watson. Those were all amazing, amazing things because we were always at the forefront and data was always the foundation and no one ever wanted to talk about data. It was always like a afterthought, but I made sure, hell or high water, that I made it a topic of discussion at the forefront. And I think I was effective because I always talked to them about the risk. If you don't do this, this will happen. If we don't do this, this will happen. And I used their languages, not our languages. And so oftentimes when data was cut from budget, any project that I was on, data was not being cut from project. When I was supposed to just be on the business development side, they wanted me as the team lead or the technical leader, managing the team, the group, and things just kind of happened. And then my next big break was when I left management consulting. Royal Caribbean was my client at Ernst and Young, and they asked me to join their leadership team as their chief data and AI officer. This was back in 2016. And we built the first enterprise grade data lake and just a lot of exploration. A lot of stuff hadn't been defined then. My role wasn't defined. Our scope and work wasn't 100% defined. We were building data lakes and playing with brand new technology that had just come out. And so it was a lot of experimentation. And then from there, I went on to being the chief data officer for Sony Music, the chief data and analytics officer for Merck Pharmaceuticals, and then chief analytics officer for Estee Lauder. It's been fun. Every role has been slightly different, but the issues are the same. To quote my father, same sand, different shovel. It's been great working in enterprise because you really get hands-on experience around how do you actually develop a strategy? How do you get alignment? How do you navigate through multiple political agendas and biases? How do you build a team? How do you work with an inherited team? All the stuff that we read about, all the stuff that we get clippets on, whether it's LinkedIn or actually a book, I got to exercise and apply and realize that, you know what, I could read all I want. And there are a bunch of brilliant researchers and academics and professors. But until you're boots on the ground and actually doing the work, you're really not learning much because things aren't as simple as reading a chapter. There's so many nuances involved. And so I've always prided myself on, yes, dreaming of the art of the possible and selling that to my clients and stakeholders, but being grounded in the art of the practical of like, what can we realistically do and how to set up those expectations and still get people excited about it.
Okay. And now you guys understand why I didn't even try to introduce Sol here because it's such a rich career. But let me ask you this. There is a saying, those that try sport, which is competitive, and that's what you also did, those guys have something special in the portfolio. Let's say in their backpack, there is something unique that let them strive and go through challenges later. So I want to ask you this, how much that experience with sport, which I know took a little bit of your life because you mentioned that in Austin when we met, how much that helps you to either get going or choose or determine the direction or like maybe survive, let you survive in a hard moments because from your perspective, you had to take and make a lot of tough decisions. Would that be something important? Also, I'm trying to also share a little bit of the insight here, maybe inspire people to get into sport, to beat that resilience that you need later in business. How that correlates?
My running joke I played rugby and water polo, so not the most graceful and softest sport. My running joke is that I needed to get tackled for purposely to help me prepare for the day to work.
No, that's okay.
Right? Like I had to get hit in the face. I had to get tackled. That's the crazy part about it. Nothing prepares you. It's not like you grow up and you say, this is the field I want to get into. It chooses you. You don't choose it. And then you just stay in it. So yeah, it's random, but I think sports just as a general rule and philosophy prepares you for everything. I really
Okay.
do. I really do. Discipline, rigor, not giving up, knowing what adversity is like, resilience, grit. My kids, they're very blessed right now. There is no, they're spoiled. They have everything they want. They're 6 and 8, but like I'm purposely holding things back that I know I can give them, because I want them to work for things, because I want them to know what it's like to fall down. I'm not the parent that gives them a trophy for participating. And I'm like, second place is the first place loser. Like,
Yeah.
I don't say that in that way, but I'm like, okay, so what if you failed? So what if you fell? Get up, get
Get
up. That's a
up.
part of the process. They cry because they got hurt. I'm giving them high fives. I'm like, congratulations, you got your first scar.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? It hurts. I'm like, yeah. And the next time it's going to hurt less. So congratulations. Right. So like as much as I can, but because until you get into sports, you really don't know that experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
And those are the things that I think we have to teach our kids. So sports for me was everything. It prepared me. I think it just prepares a lot of people for grit, continuity, resilience, and just getting back up. Things aren't always pretty, nor are they expected to be pretty, nor should they be pretty.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. That's a little bit on a side question, but now I want to read something. So let me read this. Your survival guide to AI in the real world, 4 common mistakes when deploying AI, which is your book. is a resource for anyone involved in the deployment of AI technologies or those trying to get started. 5 stars on Amazon. Another one. Sol did a great job with this book. It's easy to get through deep enough on each topic area, and the examples of types of organizations, examples, guys, so it's very practical. And there are areas where AI is being applied was really helpful. Another 5 stars opinion. The another one I like in a landscape often cluttered with AI literature that leans heavily on complex jargon. A Sol book stands out as a lighthouse for those who are keen to understand AI. What I'm seeing here on Amazon, that this book is very practical. That's what people saying, and it's very to the point, very examples driven. My first question is, why did you write it?
I have been thinking of writing a book for about 4 years. And in
Okay.
these 4 years, I wasn't taking it too seriously. But if an idea came up, whether I was on a run or in a meeting or in flight,
Mm-hmm.
I would use my notes app on Mac and just be like, oh, this would be a fun chapter. How do you actually design a data strategy or an AI strategy? And over the course of 4 years, I accumulated several different chapter ideas. It was just a title and a paragraph.
Okay.
And then when I resigned from enterprise and said, okay, I need a bit of a break, the goal was to rest and repair. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do except for just relax. I failed miserably, by the way. I've been busier than ever, but it's a different type of busy. I was very fortunate that Steve Nori was talking to a publisher and he'd recommended me. The publisher reached out to me in November. I signed the contract in December and like my final draft.
2023.
Oh yeah, November 2023 was the first conversation. December 2023 was the contract, and I submitted my final draft February 2024. And with the like it was the fastest that Wiley said. They're like, we
Yeah.
can't even believe we got this out there. I'm like, well, we kind of have to. I said, first, everyone's going to hit AI fatigue, but two, this is the year where everyone's pushing from prototype to production, and a lot of people are going to run into issues and they're not going to know why. Three, I've been pushing things into production, and I feel like I nearly know all the mistakes. I had some
Mm-hmm.
great coaching and encouragement from other individuals who'd written books. Apparently, I had a lot to say. It was in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest driver of it I'm an avid reader, and most of the folks and authors that I read from are researchers. They're academics. They're great at what they do, but they're research and academics. I hadn't really read a good hard book of someone who's lived through the trials and tribulations and the mistakes and have it be a compilation of failures, of things they tried that didn't work and why it didn't work. And that's just what I've been living the past 20
So
plus years in data and the past 13 years in AI.
there you go.
And
There we go. I'm
yeah,
sorry interrupting you, but to me, it's such, that's why I started kind of like from the end, because I mean, from the end, speaking of the public projects I know, which is the book, because you have a lot of other experience that happened before that book. And then the reason I started with this one is because when I look at that book being published on Amazon, it's like, hey, it couldn't be a different step. Like after such a like rich career, there is so much you can squeeze in onto pages about the practical experience. I was not even surprised with these opinions on Amazon recommendations because I was expecting that to be very practical things like this. So let me ask you this question. Who is this book for? I mean, who you want to read that book and what should people like, what can people expect? I know it's for sure for consultants, for people like me, because there's a lot of examples, practical approaches, mention about failures and mention about good stuff, but also like who is that book for? And the second question is, if I read that book, what do you want me to take to get as a takeaway?
ooh, that's a loaded question.
I know it
Uh,
is, but I want the audience to. I literally want the audience to because that's one that's people keep saying. I don't want to
yeah,
quote my opinion, but what people say it's practical, down to the earth, and it stands out on a very cluttered landscape. Everybody's talking
yeah.
about AI now, whatever. So that's why I want to just kind of like drag this out. Who is it for, and what you want us to take away from this book?
Yeah, great question. It is meant for a general audience. So, mostly if you're a non-technologist and either want to start with AI, you hear about AI and you're like, what the heck do I do with AI?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're also an executive that's sort of techno-functional and you've been tasked with building a POC or a use case or pivoting from a POC into production, or you're a technologist and for some reason, even though you're building great things, you're not able to translate and you're not able to mobilize and you're not able to commercialize the things you've built. Like if I had to sum it up, that's what it would be because it's like, when you pivot from a practitioner or an individual contributor into a leadership role, no one teaches you how to write a great strategy deck. No one tells you
Mm-hmm.
what to include. And you can read it and you can understand the components, but how to write it and craft it and that storytelling, that messaging, no one talks to you about it. But with AI, there's certain nuances even with strategy. Strategy is great, but strategy without execution is just pure hallucination. So
That's
you
what you
have to
said
come
in
up with
Austin. I remember
yeah,
that.
totally. And like you have to develop a strategy that's within your means of actually delivering on. And you have to assess your current maturity levels around data and infrastructure and talent when it comes to AI specifically and develop a strategy, whether it's efficiency based, growth based, knowledge based, efficacy based, like based on your current maturity. But no one talks to you about that stuff. No one tells you. They just assume you're supposed to know. And that's just unfair. Or things around how to even select a use case. There's still a lot of companies, even though we hear about all these amazing applications.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, a lot of it is marketing. There's a lot of snake oil out there, people wanting to tout how amazing they
Yeah.
are, but it's never been a home run by any means. And a lot of people are still kicking the tires around what use cases. And like with AI, you cannot pick a use case based on business value alone. You can't. It'll get you into trouble. And so I talk you through why and how to actually select the process or select a use case. And this could apply to your product strategy, your data strategy, your AI strategy. Like, how do you pick and choose as a leader what you should focus in on? And it's something that I created in IBM because I tripped and fell so many times, and it's something that I've used in all my like posts as a C-suite or non. And I've never had anyone push back on my vision, mission, and strategy in the areas that we were going to focus in on. Because what I do is both qualitative, so it really hits home emotionally, but it's also quantitative. There's a method behind the madness, and it's not geared towards my agenda, but I take a look at other people's agenda as well and where we should really focus on as a company. So like I share that stuff. And then I also let people know the little known secret that 70% of AI projects and their successes or failures have nothing to do with data or infrastructure, have nothing to do with
Yes.
tech. It's actually the people, it's the strategy, it's the use case you choose. So walking people through the gotchas. So that's why I always say it's the art of the possible. You can do it. Anyone can do AI, whether personally as an individual and the tools you use day to day or with an enterprise. But you got to be aware and you've got to know some of the things I've gone through as an example or others have gone through. So you just don't make the same mistakes. So I like to say that the book is actually just an aggregation of all my failures and what
Yeah.
not to do.
Yes, yes, and I didn't ask this question just to have the answer. I was expecting that this is kind of like like a complete puzzle, like together presenting everything what you've learned over your life journey. Guys, you can get the book on Amazon. It's on Apple Books. I store my books on Apple Books, so you can get there, and you can get that on Kindle everywhere. So for sure, check it out. We will publish the link under the episode for sure for you guys. Worth reading, and obviously you have a paper, hard copy, digital copy, whatever you guys want. So
Thank
let me
you.
ask you, of course. So let me ask you this question: from your perspective, data-driven companies, are they even exist? I mean, is everybody so much data-driven as everybody is saying? What's your vision on that? Can company become data-driven, and what's the role of C-level people to make that company really data-driven? I know you have a perspective on that.
I think if you're it's so funny. If you are a tech-based company, it actually doesn't mean you're a data-driven company, which is something that I just recently learned in the past 3 years. And I really cemented and validated the past year because I've been helping a lot of startups and scale-ups that have phenomenal products that solve real issues in the marketplaces, both for enterprise and non-enterprise. And they are not data-driven, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they're tech stack driven, they're product driven. So it's all around the product and the problem it solves and the consumer experience, but they are not data driven. They're just not measuring certain things, interactions, like experiences and PS score. And it's so funny to see some of these smaller and mid-sized companies who do have technology as a core still not be data driven. And even though we know it's important, even though we know it's an asset, it's just still an afterthought. I think people get so focused on building the core or solving for the
Mm-hmm.
core that they forget that they can solve for it by understanding the insights around it. And they can only get the insights through information, which can only be derived from data. I think for some reason, like, there's that theory, Kevin Bacon and degrees removed. Because data is like 4 to 5 degrees removed, it's forgotten, even with tech-based companies. So I do think that there are companies that lean on reports and information
Hmm.
and insights. Of course, they are not data centric or data driven at its core. Things are still stitched together like a Frankenstein piece.
Yeah.
They're not
But
stitched
but
together the way they need to be from the very get-go.
yeah, and I see something here, what you really said. I'm sorry interrupting you, but the tech stack, it's not enough to make you data driven. What I'm reading from your message is you need to really connect what is important for your business and then drive that numbers, I guess, analyze them and make decision because even the most fancy stuff, tech stack will not take you there. That's what you're trying to say?
100%. Yes.
Okay.
The tech stack
Okay.
alone is not enough. It's just not. Just everyone has a tech stack. Enterprises have massive tech stacks. Doesn't mean they're data driven.
Right, right, right. Could you share any best practices for like bringing data or AI, whatever you choose, or maybe both? I know definitely different things, but whatever you wanna pick up. Best practices for bringing data driven approach or AI or both under the company umbrella, like the best practice, the best things we can take out from you and say tomorrow, hey, thanks to Sol, I now can fix this and that. So what would be that best practice that you can mention, or maybe a couple of them?
Your strategy needs to align with your maturity.
Mm-hmm.
You can dream, but that doesn't mean it can be converted into action. So put a strategy in place that you know you can deliver on, and set expectations up front. Don't ever pick a use case based on business value. You have to take a look at, and I provided a 10-point framework, 5 in criticality, 5 in complexity. And based on the weights in the score and how it plops on a quadrant, business value is one of the 10. It's not the only measure. So pick use cases based on criticality and complexity, not on business value alone. You have to understand the people you work with. Like there's a chapter in there around the 10 archetypes of people you're going to confront: the curmudgeon, the know it all, the cheerleader, the doer.
Mm-hmm.
There's a time and place because when you're in bigger organizations, or even if you're in a small company, the whole point of like collaborating and the whole point of being cross functional and being matrix is just the reality. We're just expected to work with everyone. But there's a time and place to bring in different characters and personas and archetypes so that you're productive when you're forced to work with a bunch of people. You have to know when to pull in the right individuals. So even though you have a curmudgeon on the team who's just always negative and always says, yeah, but, and it's
Mm-hmm.
annoying, that person actually plays a critical role. And, I talk through when to bring them in because they could actually point out the blind spots that you may have, but you have to know when to bring them in. So there's a healthy way of incorporating them and an unhealthy way of incorporating them. You can't do AI without humans. I absolutely believe in the philosophy of human in the loop. So triaging, feedback loops, like how to put that structure in place so you don't get into trouble and experience a few whoopsies. And then how to storytell and communicate the narrative of the value that's going to be achieved. It is not a light switch. You don't turn it on and voila, you're going to expect results. So how do you create that end-to-end story of when they can expect results? I would say those things are super key and fundamental, and you just can't skip.
Okay, and that takes me to another thing I want to ask you is many companies, vendors, solution providers, startups, they target C-level people. C-suite are my target. I mean, CDO, CIO, CEO is obviously on 100% company's agenda most of the time. And
Yeah.
so, from your perspective, what this group of business individuals, what they care about the most in data AI, and what people should, if you want to be a value delivery person or consultative perfectionist, what these people want to see. Do they even care about data AI? Because everybody, wants to have good results, meaning revenue or stock exchange value, whatever it is for a specific company. So is data AI big deal, or as cloud and anything else is just a tool to get us somewhere. So I don't want to ask a question how to convince them to work with us. No, that's not the question. It's what they care when the data and AI wave is almost watering every corner of the business.
Yeah. Well, I think, and my peers may kill me for this, CDOs, CAOs, and CIOs, everyone is trying to figure it out still.
Okay.
Things are coming, the pace of change is so fast that even if you invested in an LLM and built, fine tuning an LLM model 6 months ago, that may or may not be the approach right now, but you're married to it because you've invested millions into it. There is no such
Mm-hmm.
thing as an AI tech stack. There is no such thing as a modern data tech stack.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of products and services and approaches out in the field today is so massive. It's so massive that most of my peers and I, like, we're stuck following through on the investments we made a year or 2 years ago to see it through. But the game consistently changes every 6 months. And so everyone is drinking from a fire hose. So I think one, there has to be empathy. Don't take it as an insult if they don't get back to you, because I'm not lying, but I got on average, and if I looked at my Microsoft Analytics, anywhere from 700 to 825 emails a day. Just I'm being realistic. And I would say a quarter of those were vendors, were partners, people
Mm-hmm.
trying to sell me things. It's nothing stands out. And so email for me just was not an effective means of communication because I was always behind. But some of the things that were effective were when vendors and partners were kind of like, hey, we know this is important for you. We're sending you a book on this. Hey, we know this is important for you because we heard about this. We're sending you a free pass to this conference. It
Mm-hmm.
was the fact that they did some homework, they knew what was important to me, and they found a book, a person, or a conference important. And it wasn't the introduction to the CEO. That didn't work. That didn't mean
Okay.
anything to me because I didn't know anything about the company. It was they wanted to connect me with something that could help me that had nothing to do with their company. It was, I'm going to build your trust in me first before I get to talk to you about selling what we sell. Like those things sometimes worked for sure, higher probability, but a simple email of introducing never worked because I would get 2 to 250 emails a day from
I
vendors,
know.
partners, and solicitors. So you have to understand, don't feel rejected, because if your inbox was like mine, it's impossible to get through everything. So we ignore more than we respond to. I think the second is if you are trying to get in front of a CDO, CAO, or CIO, don't assume they know exactly what they need. The pace of change is so fast. The tech stacks are consistently changing. You're in a position to educate, but you have to do it in a passive way, not active way. You're not educating them about your software and what it solves, but a problem that exists within the marketplace as a whole and how you think you have a way to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not use this orchestration tool or use this observability tool, but in general, understanding where your data assets exist and how to quickly find it and getting the businesses to adopt and use it when you've developed a self-service analytics tool is a conundrum. Here are the 3 reasons why it's a conundrum. And we think that we found a way around reason number 1, right? So it's that thought leadership piece because everyone is learning on the fly right now. And I think third, nothing beats face to face. Now, it doesn't mean that a CDO, CAO, or CIO is going to make time for you 30 minutes in their calendar. They're already behind. They can't even answer their emails. So
Yeah.
it has to be in creative places that they're going to get face time because that's who you trust and that's who you remember.
And you know that I'm a big fan of your LinkedIn posts, and I read them a lot. And also, I remember your keynote in Austin when we met in the Data Texas, and you talk about people a lot. I mean, getting alignment,
Yeah.
empathy. You mentioned before. Can you tell us, like, if you or if somebody needs to prepare a team for like making that data-driven company happen or that AI project happen. I don't want to ask like that. Just give me a proportion of people you want to hire, and this will be 25% of this one or 35. But how you see the team design from that perspective to make data projects, AI projects happening, making them successful. Any rules, any specific hints, or maybe something you want to share for so people that are building teams for that, which is by the way expensive process even from a recruitment perspective. Uh, Anything you can share?
That I would say is where the secret sauce kicks in. I don't have
Hmm.
an answer for that. It's not clear cut. It's not black or white. I think it's partially why I've stepped into so many landmines and made the
Hmm.
mistakes because I've read the books. I've applied the suggestions that other made, and sometimes it just doesn't work. And you're like, well, why doesn't it work? This doesn't make any sense. And you're trying to figure out, like, what the heck, man? But it just doesn't work. And so I think I want to say it's black and white. It's not. It's like 100 shades of gray. So it's very, very situational. So I
Okay.
would love nothing more than to make it easy. It's very situational.
Okay, okay. Thanks for that. And also, you mentioned like project business value. How, from your perspective, how important is to get into data or AI with clear, calculated, or even like a range design ROI or financial numbers we want to hit with that AI data effort? Does it really is that important as everybody thinks? The reason I'm asking this question is because you mentioned before, like don't assume C-level group always knows what they want or always understand the technology they want they need to have. So I would assume from that it's not always possible to calculate ROI. But on the other side, you need to pour some money, not even money, but like resources, people, maybe infrastructure into
Yeah.
it. I want to actually ask that how much does it weigh in the whole process? ROI, clear calculations.
It helps you to get budget. It
Okay.
helps
You
you
need
to
a
get
budget, that's for
sponsorship.
sure.
Yeah, but I mean, half the time, like when you're going through your financial cycles on a yearly basis, you have to do all that calculation for people even to listen to you and what you have to
Mm-hmm.
offer and what they're going to get in return. If they were to give you $4 million for this project, what are they going to get in return and how long is it going to take?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to calculate those. Yeah, there's no way around it. You have to calculate those. But that's to get budget. But it doesn't necessarily mean, oddly enough, at year one or two or three, people have amnesia. They get very busy. No one really goes back to recalculate or understand whether or not they hit those metrics. It's kind of funny. In all my years in enterprise, I've presented the ROI calculations, the business value during the financial cycles in order to get the budget. But when we revisit progress, we revisit utilization. We never go back to the ROI and the business value.
Mm-hmm.
Like those numbers don't matter anymore. So I feel like
Okay.
sometimes it's a bit of a beauty pageant, and you need to know how to create the numbers, and you need to know how to justify the numbers because people will ask questions. But holding you to those numbers and being accountable for them, it gets really loosey goosey in some organizations. We don't go back and measure against what we said we were going to do. And I think this is where companies who struggle with execution experience. Those that do not go back and do not consistently look at what you promised struggle with execution.
So execution is the most important part, you want to say.
I don't want to say you have to know how to execute, of course. Organizations that have executed well or have delivery excellence in their DNA have a very good habit of remembering and going back and visiting consistently what the person promised they were going to deliver, when they were going to deliver, how much it was going to cost. And that
Okay.
person over time builds a reputation, and then you don't have to provide the ROI per se. You're going to get the budget because you have the consistency of delivering. But organizations that that waste a lot of money because they can't deliver, there's a lot of drag, there's a lot of lag, are the ones I've noticed don't really go back to the original ROI and say, did you deliver what you said you were going to deliver and by then?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So here's another question regarding like getting alignment. I remember your slide again from Austin. Sorry, guys, I know I'm always mentioning Austin, but that's where I hear the keynote and I still remember a lot. It was a great piece of motivation, inspiration, and knowledge. But you mentioned a lot about alignment. How that practically looks like. Like I remember one guy on the internet somewhere on the webinar about AI said that if he has a day without the meeting when he needs to explain the AI project details, whatever they do, it's the waste day in terms of alignment. Does it look the same on your side that if you're a company and you are a leader of AI data projects, so every day you have massive number of meetings and you keep repeating the goals or the nuances of the project or technology. So basically it's constantly aligning on Slack, meetings, text, phone
Yeah.
calls. Is that how that looks like to get people on the same page? Because if we want to take two people on the same page, that's easy. But if you have like 30, 40 40, 50 people. You were working on for a very prominent brand, so I guess the teams were pretty extensive. So how practically that alignment looks like? The reason I'm asking you is because I want to give our audience also a hint. If you guys, because alignment is so important in this type of project, so you want to do it, right? So here we got Sol, very experienced person. So how that alignment happens, like what do you do and how that practically looks like?
It's probably the biggest reason why I needed a break. My
Oh,
energy and efforts and frustrations are never around building the things. Energy, frustrations, what you need to manage is all about the communication and alignment. And my teams aren't 10 people or 20 people. I've had managed teams as large as 800 and as small as 150. And even on my own team, a team that I curated or a team that I put together or a team that I inherited that fundamentally understands that, hey, they're trying to make a difference. Even with those teams,
mm-hmm.
not all of them are believers. Not all of them are believers. Some of them are even self-sabotagers in the sense that they want to sabotage because it means that their roles are going to change and they don't want to change.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy. Even within your own team, you get that mixed bag of nuts. And it's sad. So you have to consistently communicate internally on the why, the purpose, what we're trying to achieve, knowing that some people are going to be on board, some people are going to be off. They're just not going to want to do it. And then you have to align with the other teams, the cross-functional groups. Then you have
Mm-hmm.
to align with their leaders. Then you have to align with your peers. Then you have to align with stakeholders and their groups.
Yeah.
Then you have to align with your boss. And because
That's
everyone's
what I'm
managing
asking.
10 to 20 to 30 things on their own and they're drinking from a fire hose, you may align and communicate. They'll get 2% of what you said. Then they're going to go back to doing their own thing and forget everything you said. So it is
Yeah.
a consistent game of communication, realignments, and reminders. 90% of my job is reminding people of why we're doing things and why we need their help in doing it. But
It's
after
tough.
my
It's
first,
tough. It sounds
it's
like
very
tough.
tough. It's where all your energy goes. Yeah. I mean, my first C-suite started in 2016. 2023, I took a break. So how long have I been doing it? Yeah, 9 years.
9 years.
Sorry, 7 years.
Seven
Wait,
years.
is it
7 years. Yeah.
7 years?
16,
Seven
2023. Yeah.
years, C-suite positions. Yeah. I needed a break because I've been doing it for 7 years consistently. No
Mm-hmm.
breaks. No breaks at all. Like I always remember my last job would stop on a Friday and I'd start the next one on a Monday. For
Yeah.
7 years, every day has been realignment, communication, and reminders of what we're doing, why we're doing it, the impact it's going to have, and why I need their help.
Yeah.
And I've had to do it
Well,
with my own team and with everyone else around it.
yeah, another reason to get that book because this experience is also squeezed in there. So I mean, I know. I mean, I was expecting that answer to be kind of, well, it sounds great. It's tough job and it's a lot of energy, a lot of discussion, and sometimes probably you just hit the wall and hit the wall and say again, again, and again. But I see that is also critical in projects. So let me ask you another question. Many people listening to us are wondering what should be my next step? What should I excel at? There's a lot of technologies today that haven't existed 2 years ago, and they are at their prime, or maybe they are like picking up things like obviously I'm trying to fly around Gen AI, but not only. If you can give advice to somebody who is in business, maybe somewhere in the middle management, or maybe getting there, and now I can't imagine businesses without like talking about data or talking about AI. From your perspective, what would you like to say to people that want to be like you, like be successful there, get that brand working, get that project successfully successfully developed, and all the things you've done. But today, I don't want to say it's been a decade, but I'm trying to look at that time you were working for the brands, and today from what happened on the AI, on the market with AI. So you today and AI, what would you like to say to people that are just trying to, have the same or a similar level successful career like you have?
It's funny, I think from the outside in, it looks successful. And yes, I've had the positions. My team and I have done good work. We've gotten awards. But when you're in it, every day feels like a struggle. There
Okay.
are,
That's
don't get me wrong,
mhm.
there are good days for sure, but I would say it's a 10 to 1 ratio.
Yeah. Okay.
Nine
Important.
frustrating days. Yeah, 9 frustrating days for every one good day. But I never stopped. And, I just never stopped. I just kept going and going and going and going and going and going. And some days it hurt. Some days were frustrating. Some days are like, why am I doing this? Some days I wanted to quit. Some days I was jumping for joy. The thing is you don't stop. And for me, I just always had this trajectory of I'm going to take dips down and I'm going to take dips up. But as long as the overall direction was up, I was okay with it. But I
Okay.
think the thing nowadays is there's just a few stuff. You think you know something, you never really do. You have to be adaptable. You have to consistently change. You have to evolve. Things are changing so fast. You may feel comfortable with the tech stack a year ago. That's not the tech stack nowadays. You may
Mm-hmm.
feel comfortable with an approach a year ago. That approach may or may not be relevant
Mm-hmm.
nowadays. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's just crazy. So I think the other thing is you always have to reinvent yourself as well. What may have grounded you as an identity 5 years ago, data scientist, principal
Mm-hmm.
scientist, data
Mm-hmm.
engineer, data architect, a founder, an entrepreneurial, a business analyst, like whatever you're into, the roles are just evolving and you've got
Mm-hmm.
to evolve as well. I was in the data space hardcore. And then
Mm-hmm.
I got into AI because of data. And then I was in the quote unquote AI space, but I was still doing data work. But like now the two kind of went hand in hand. But the role of even my roles of the CDO or CAO, it doesn't matter about the title. While the problems are similar, the approaches are different. The people I work with are different. The scope and budget was different. Team size was different. You have to be okay with things not being fair, not being given what you asked for. You have to be okay with not getting success the first, second, or third time, but eventually you will. My greatest lesson was no doesn't mean no. No means not right now, and to keep
Okay.
going at it, right? So like I want to say it's common sense, but it doesn't feel like common sense when you're in the thick of it.
Okay, thank you for that. So, I think that artificial intelligence will find its place in everything what is we can wrap up in customer operation and sales. What I mean by that is because then you can see a clear value. Like if you improve the way people answer or return emails in a clothing company, that will for sure either increase the satisfaction, maybe loyalty or retention of the customers. If you predict the churn and you will just stop doing things that customer don't like, you will just increase the retention and probably revenue. If you analyze emails on a customer service side in a small company around the corner, and you'll do it faster because they will be summarized with any AI tool, and then you will be able to respond faster. So, which means time to solution will be shorter. That means your customer will come back and say, "Hey, guys, I love you. I want to buy more in your shop." So I think that AI will find, or maybe already found its place in customer operations sales. What I'm thinking about the back end of the company, maybe frauds, maybe somewhere else. I'm not that sure. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, it's already being applied in all those areas. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sales and marketing are the top functions right now leveraging AI. Fraud is one of the oldest. Fraud, anomaly detection, customer support and operations is the oldest application of AI-based capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Those are already in play.
Okay. I was wondering what you think about it. And I want to ask you this. Okay, last question, because I know we are over the time, and thank you for 5 additional minutes. I know you're extremely busy. And then, but actually, two last questions. The last one regarding this podcast is where are we heading? And what Sol thinks about where we heading with AI? What's your take on that?
Oh God, I can't even
I know, but
begin.
with the person with such a rich experience, I need to ask that because you are like that box with a treasure. Like you saw so many things that I need to have your opinion
Jeez.
about where we heading, Saul. What you see in the future?
Well, I think maybe in the next year or two, the AI term itself won't be as prevalent in media channels and newses, and we'll move on to another term. I think it's just going to be embedded into our day-to-day lives, whether we realize it or not, and it's going to be as easy as possessing ads on Amazon or Target or wherever we shop. It's just going to be a part of life, and that level of hype is going to just get reduced a little bit, if you will. We just won't be talking about it as much the way we are now. I think that's just inevitable for sure, for sure.
Part of life. That's critical. Part of life. I'm explaining my mom and my dad. They are like almost 70 years old. That you guys need to know what is AI. Why? Because one day it's going to pop up from the microwave, or it's going to just send you an email you are about to click. So you need to
Yeah.
understand how that works, why it's important. Obviously, not from a technical perspective, but that's what I understand. Like it's going to be part of life. So maybe we don't need to understand how that engine works, and maybe that we should leave that to more technical or whatever people, but we need to understand what the consequences are just behind that
Yeah,
doors.
yeah, I would agree. I would agree. And I think there's just certain generations that they're not gonna even know what hit them, if I'm being truthful. And then there are gonna be other generations that are just gonna expect it, learn, understand it, like ours, but especially our kids.
Yeah.
Like right now, it was funny, I was on a subway in New York City, and it was interesting to see a 3-year-old in a stroller on the subway, and she was getting a little bit fussy. And so the mom gave her where she was reading, and the 3-year-old didn't know how to turn the pages of the newspaper. The 3-year-old was swiping
Well,
on the
swiping.
pages, swiping,
No,
swipe.
incredible.
No joke, right?
I can see many people
Swiping,
now. So like, so what they talking about? Like we still want the paper books and paper newspapers and things like that.
swiping.
And I know it will be with us, but swiping will dominate. I promise. Last question, and this is last question. Where we can find you if people wanna follow your wonderful posts and wonderful content, where they can find you, Sol?
I am very active on LinkedIn.
I confirm.
Yeah, so like that's a new thing for me. It's not something I've done historically before. But if you want to follow me on that, that would be great. I hope you like the book. It's on Amazon, Walmart, Apple. It hit bestseller a few weeks ago, which I'm really proud of. The Substack, newsletter. I don't do it like on a weekly basis. I do save my content because I respect people's time. So it's about once a month, once every 2 months. But I would say LinkedIn, the newsletter, and yeah, the book would be fantastic.
Yeah, so guys, LinkedIn, Substack, book. Sol, I want to thank you so much for finding time in your busy schedule. I was really, really hoping we can get this done one day because I think you have so much to say and such a rich experience. Thank you for being here with us. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And guys, if you want to get more, the best way is to get that book, go to that Substack. Always, as a consultant, I'm striving for feedback. If you see a space for improvement in this podcast, please do not even hesitate to sending an email to me. I really thank you for staying with us, and I have zero doubts that this is a very valuable conversation, and everybody can learn a lot. Thank you so much, and take care. And
Thank
bye
you.
bye. Thank you, Saul.
Thank you for having me. Bye.